Hello and welcome to Never on the Back Foot. Tonight, we are diving into the thrilling world of the Super 8 matches. We'll be recapping all the standout matches, the performances, nail biting finishes, and all the unforgettable moments that have defined this stage of the tournament. Now, we'll also be focusing on the semi finals where the stakes are, of course, higher, the competition is fiercer. So, yeah, to all the viewers who have joined us, get ready for an in depth analysis and predictions from our end, just who would make the finals and everything. So, joining me on the podcast today is Anshul. He seamlessly combines his professional expertise as a data scientist with his unwavering passion for cricket, having proudly supported the Australian team, as you can see with his attire today. You can see that he's been a fan for decades and his love for the game clearly runs very deep. Not only that, our guest also boasts of a very impressive cricketing career as a right arm bowler, representing his state in various tournaments over the last decade. So, warm welcome to you, Anshul. Thank you so much for joining us, and to all our viewers as well. Please do share your thoughts, comments and questions in the live chat, and we'll make sure to address them through the course of our discussion as well. So, yeah, without further ado, let's get right to it. So, yeah, Anshul, so far, how would you assess the World Cup? I mean, as an Aussie fan, I'm sure you must be hurting, but someone who, really deeply loves the game, I'm sure you must be enjoying the quality of cricket, right?
Yeah, firstly, thanks Neha for having me. It's really been quite a while that we have done a show together. So yeah, it's really good to be. It really feels good to be back. Yeah, I think this particular defeat that we endured against Afghanistan, I particularly feel that it was not because of the fact that we did not bat or bowl that well. It was mere. I think this entire campaign has been highlighted by Australia's fielding in particular. I mean, I recently came across a stat that talked about the number of dropped catches that we had throughout this tournament. So, ever since group stage up until the day we were eliminated, we dropped 15 catches, and that is something that you do not really ever associate with Australia. I mean, we pride ourselves in terms of how well we field, and that was pretty evident in the 50 over World Cup as well, particularly in the semi-final and final, where I think we stopped around about 75 to 80 runs just in the field against South Africa and India. And to come to Caribbean, where of course the wind plays a huge factor, but that should not be an excuse for a team like Australia who pride themselves for their fielding. So I think yeah, that's one area where I feel Australia did not deserve to be in the top four, and that's merely because of the fielding efforts they put in. Because even the game against Afghanistan, as we'll talk more about it, I think the critical moments we are not able to capitalize on merely because of the way we fielded. And I think yeah, that's the whole reason why we aren't seeing Australia in the top four.
Certainly, I think you bring in some very valid points, and through the course of our discussion, we'll dwell a little bit more on Australia and what didn't work out well for them. But just looking at the Super 8 matches as well, we'll start off with the USA versus South Africa match. Right now, this was a scintillating one. We saw how South Africa pulled off an 18-run win, and somewhere coming in this match, there's so much expectations on US because it's a home World Cup, and the way they have been performing, they pipped the likes of Pakistan, to make it all the way here. So, what were your thoughts on this match and just the way everything unfolded?
I really enjoyed this 20 team tournament, to be honest, because the quality of cricket that was on display throughout the tournament up until now has been nothing short of exhilarating. We saw quite a lot of upsets, quite a lot of smaller teams. I won't call them minos, because I personally feel that in the game of T20, any team can topple another team given their day. So I won't call anybody a mino, be it Afghanistan beating Australia, or Afghanistan beating New Zealand, or even USA beating Pakistan, because I'd been following USA cricket for quite a while now, at least last 1 year or so, and I was quite impressed with the way they had been preparing. They literally asked every other board if we could play some games against you guys just for the sake of practice. And I think right before the tournament began, they had a series against Bangladesh as well, where they comprehensively defeated them in two games, I think. They won the series 2-1. So I think you can't really call any team a mino in T20 format in particular, because on any like I said, on any given day, one team can topple another one, irrespective of the irrespective of the fact how big names are featuring in say any team.
Yeah, that's definitely true. But this was not the ideal start that the USA wanted. But the fact that they were able to bring it to this end and this thriller that South Africa pulled off with that 18 runs is how the match pretty much did unfold. But let's also look at the much anticipated West Indies versus England match. We saw England chase down that total of 180. So what did you make of this encounter, and was it something also you were looking forward to?
The West Indies and England game was, I think, probably the first game where I saw the Pommies in their actual form. Because if I'm being very honest, England did not deserve to be in the Super 8. I mean, even if I talk about the semi-final, they did not deserve to be in the semi-final, because out of the 8 games, they won what 4.5 or 5.5 games. If I consider the Australia Scotland game, then 5.5 games out of 8. And if you look at teams like the other kind, if you look at the other teams who have qualified, Afghanistan won 4-4 in their group stage. Apart from that, they have been quite impressive in the Super 8 stage as well. I think they lost just one game to India. So it's what 7 out of 8 for Afghanistan, 8 out of 8 for India and South Africa as well. So I think, yeah, if you look at the other teams who have qualified for the semi-finals, I think, yeah, England must be trying to like England must be feeling that little bit of nerves because they haven't really been able to put up a perfect game on the board so far.
Fair enough. And talking about another team, who a lot of fans are not satisfied entirely with their performances, has to be India, surprisingly, because the wins that have been notched up in the group stages to now, the Super 8s, like this match, in particular versus Afghanistan, was a fairly simple one. We saw India run away with the 47-run win, but, being challenged at so many junctures in that match. So, how would you look at this encounter and India's campaign at large?
I think India's campaign this far, this particular tournament has been quite similar to the one they had in 23 World Cup, the 50 over World Cup, because of how every other individual has put up their hands whenever the team has been in a dire situation. We've seen the middle order performing, of course, the top order performed against Australia. We've seen some late finishes by Hardik Pandya. And Akshar Patel as well. So I think, yeah, and I can't really put a finger on the bowling department because it's been led by, I think, one of the masters of the game with Jasprit Bumrah. I mean, I think Australia game was this only second time where he went for more than 10 runs in an over in this World Cup, and the previous one was, I think, against Scotland, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, so I think the bowling department has been firing for India for quite a long time now, and it was only a nick of time that the Indian top order would also come to the party, and that is something that happened in the Australia game as well. So yeah, I think India is shaping up quite well for the upcoming semi-finals. But I think so far they haven't really been challenged. So I think the semi-final, given the fact that England have found that momentum, I think they would find a little bit challenging. But I reckon India would come on tops in the semi-final as well.
Right, and I'm excited to preview that match as well because there's just so much going into it, and both the teams are looking really good. But probably India has the edge, and let's see when we get there. But I think this match will interest you, Anshul, because the Bangladesh versus Australia match was a match that was affected by rain. We still saw Australia register that 28-run win. So, what were your takeaways from that game? And at that point, also, did you feel that Australia still has a good chance of just making through from the Super 8 stages?
Yeah, I did feel up until the Afghanistan game, I did feel that Australia have got a really good chance to get into the semi-finals because, of course, like I said, the fielding has been abysmal from our end, but it was the batting department that had been doing a lot of heavy work. Of course, the middle order has been a concern for us. Everyone was very skeptical about Glenn Maxwell, but I knew that Maxi would come in his true colors once an ICC tournament kicks up, and that was the case as well. Where he was a little bit slow to start through the group stage. I'll agree to that, but come the Super 8 stage, I think he found his mojo back. I think the biggest concern for us throughout this tournament was, apart from the fielding, of course, I think that was the form of Mitch Marsh. the low scores that Mitch Marsh endured throughout this tournament, I think that's one area where the other teams have really capitalized. If you look at two, three spots of other teams, I think that's where those teams have really capitalized, particularly at the early fall of a wicket. You saw in the previous game as well, where having lost Virat Kohli quite early in the innings, Rohit Sharma took it upon himself, and it was Rishabh Pant as well who did it. Similarly, if you look at South Africa, that has been the case with them as well, with Aiden Markram literally converting his IPL form to here, irrespective of the differences in decks. The IPL decks were quite batter friendly. However, the decks that we that we so far have seen in the this particular World Cup, T20 World Cup, they've been quite sticky, a little bit towards bowlers. But yeah, I think that's one area where I think Australia lost. And coming to the Bangladesh game, I think that even that game we were in a little bit of a dire situation up until Marcus Stoinis played the kind of knock that he played, and yeah, I think from there onwards we did not really look like faltering in that game.
Absolutely. It did feel like, one of those wins that Australia would anyways register, with a few challenges here and there. And let's also, talk about the South Africa versus England match. Now, this was a well contested match, at least in my opinion, because England, ended up on the losing side. They were in the pursuit of a target of just 163, but the manner, in which South Africa defended that total, because the kind of explosive batters that England has. So, what were your impressions of this encounter and a tough loss for England?
I think that was one really pommy game from England. I could not really have seen any other team bottling that game apart from England, because I think at one point of time they needed some 25 runs of 18 balls, and they somehow managed to lose that game by 8-10 runs or something. So that's honestly something that really I feel really good about it. That okay, if some like Ellis Perry once said, if you are supposed to do it, let's do it against England, right? So, but I think the death polling for South Africa has been quite a really big revelation. Henrik Nokia's form wasn't really good coming into this World Cup. The people were quite skeptical about whether or not he would be able to perform, given how he fared in limited opportunities that he got in the IPL before being dropped, of course. So I think that's been one of the biggest revelations for South Africa, that their death bowling has come forward, and to defend 25 runs in 3 overs against England attack that has got a very well set Harry Brook. I think credit to South Africa over there for being able to defend that one. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think it also kind of quashed all the doubts, people had of, if South Africa is that good of a unit, just make it through the Super 8s and eventually to the semi-finals as well. And let's also, kind of look at the battle between the hosts. You have the match versus USA and West Indies, where the West Indies, kind of just cruised to an easy 9-wicket win. How would you look at this match? Because I had a lot of expectations going in, but then, yeah, West Indies just did what they had to do.
I mean, even I thought that maybe US would put up a better fight than they did. But I think it was just one of those games where West Indies batters were in their true colors. And my God, that innings by Nicholas Puran was something out of sorts. I mean, I haven't really seen that kind of clean hitting in this World Cup so far. And the way he batted, I think that particular innings was an innings of three phases. For the first phase, he was striking at around about 150, 160. In the second phase, when there are a couple of quick wickets, his strike rate fell somewhere around about 80 or 90, which was actually less than run a ball. And towards the third phase of his innings, it again ricocheted towards higher ends of 190, 190, 200. So I think yeah, that's something that you generally associate with these kind of legends as well. And to think about West Indies batting attack, I think they've got quite a lot of experience being in these kind of situations, because of course I think West Indian players play the most number of franchise cricket and T20 cricket of any other teams players. So I think yeah, that was one game where I thought that West Indies were truly in their colors.
Certainly, and did give a lot of hope as well, to their campaign that they would definitely make it into that semi-finals. I think a lot of our predictions for top four did have West Indies, but they eventually didn't make it, and we will talk about that as well. And let's again, come back to India because it was a match versus Bangladesh, and again India romped to a massive 50-run win, completely outplaying Bangladesh. So again, what were your takeaways from this match? And was India really challenged by Bangladesh in this one?
I think India has never been challenged in this entire tournament so far. Even in the game against Australia, I was able to hear a lot of people saying up until Travis Head is there, there could be a lot of hope for Australia, but it was just too much to do. I mean, I understand where people were coming from, having endured a couple of heartbreaks at the hands of Travis Head in the last two ICC events, but it was just quite a lot of uphill battle ever since Maxwell got out. So I mean, and it was quite a Australian performance from an Indian team where they sniffed an opportunity the moment Maxwell was castled by that Kuldeep delivery, and they capitalized on on the opportunity that they had and eventually came out winners. So I think coming to your question, India has not been challenged through so far this tournament, and I think England would be a big challenge given the fact that they have found that momentum. But I think India should be able to overcome that one and get to the finals.
Right. I mean, a lot of fans would hope you would complete that sentence with get to the finals and lay their hands on the trophy. But we will still take, going to the finals bit because I think coming into this tournament, a lot of people had very low expectations of India even, making it through to this top four. So that itself is a very big thing. And this win, versus Bangladesh kind of ensured that India could make it, to the semi-finals as well. And let's take this quick comment from Akash that says karma for Marsh putting his leg on the uh, World Cup 2023 trophy. And the memes and everything we saw was just unreal. But your take on this, Anshul?
I think this was something that was in the making, given the fact that I think all these memes they have largely come from the Indian cricket Twitter and not from the Australian people. Because
Yeah.
honestly speaking, the Australian contingent doesn't really care about these many World Cups. I mean, if I talk about the all the ICC tournaments, it's just under 19 women's T20 World Cup and men's T20 World Cup. I think apart from these two trophies, all other ICC trophies are currently held by Australia. But I guess then again, you can't really have it all, right? So I mean, I would really call it a karma. It's just that it was a one-off tournament where we just couldn't really field, and I think fielding was something that really costed us at the end.
Yeah, and also actually, kind of brings me to the next point of discussion, which was, the most important match, at least according to me, something everyone is looking forward to because of the history that these two nations share. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. The heavyweights, Afghanistan and Australia. We've seen so many bilateral series getting cancelled, players, going at it with each other. And I think what many called an upset, we saw how Afghanistan, pulled off that 21-run win. So again, what were your takeaways and major talking points from this game? And going into the match, what was your mindset? Like, did you think this was a possibility that could happen, or did you think Australia would just, probably cruise to a win?
I thought that Australia should have been able to cruise to a win in that game, but the point of difference in that game, I would definitely call it an upset because not every day you see an Australian team being outfielded by a South Asian team. I mean, we all are aware of the standards that are set in among South Asian teams. Even India was not that good a fielding side before Virat Kohli took over. So, I mean, that's something that was really surprising for me as well. That a South Asian team is outfielding Australia in an ICC game, and I think that's one area where Australia could have really restricted their total somewhere around about 130, 135, and eventually we lost the game by 21 runs, right? And that's I think that's the margin of defeat for that's the margin of defeat was largely influenced by the way we fielded, drop catches and misfields, missed opportunities. I think particularly in the area from short third to short fine, including the wicket keeper, of course. I think that area, that one sector was one area where we did not really feel that well. And if you look at Afghanistan, on the contrary, they took three brilliant catches in that area. So that's something that I feel that was the point of difference in that game. And given the way they fielded and did not really succumb under the pressure, and of course capitalized on the moments that the bowlers were creating, I think Afghanistan deserved to win that game.
Fair enough. And it means a lot coming from an Aussie fan, right? Because I'm sure the match result would have affected you a lot. And you could see the outcry all over social media like, Afghanistan has done it. But the Aussie fans must be feeling the heat, right? Because of, again, all the tension that kind of is there.
With the
And this also.
Afghanistan,
Hmm.
when the Afghanistan team really did deserve to win the game, because, like I said, T20 format is one format where any team can topple another team, and Australia were absolutely dog shit on that day. In for the field, for the way we bowled, I think 140 was something that should not have been the score on that wicket. But given the way we fielded, those 15-20 extra runs that we conceded, I think that was the margin of difference at the end. And of course, Afghanistan were the better team. They capitalized on the moment, and hence they went on to win that game and eventually qualified for the semis as well.
Yeah, I mean, this proved to be, the point of difference where Australia couldn't make it to the semi-finals and possibly the last match for David Warner. We saw the whole retirement thing. So, I'm sure, what are
Mhm.
your thoughts on, Warner retiring? The Aussie fan in you is really sad, or are you still confident that, hey, Australian cricket is in very good hands? You have such capable batters, who can possibly fill the shoes, if not, entirely complete the vacuum.
I think the void that has been left by David Warner is going to be a really huge one, particularly the test in the test department, because uh, I think 2010 to 2020, that was one decade where bowlers really dominated, and for an opening batter to average 40 in that decade, I think there were some four openers: Alistair Cook, Dimut Karunaratne, and the third one was David Warner. And I think fourth one was Tom Latham, but he also batted a few innings in the middle order, so I'm just not gonna consider him in this particular conversation. To do that, when the opening bowlers are striking around about 15 to 20 in a decade, through a decade, and average 45 in that decade, I think that really speaks for the way David Warner impacted his inning, his the kind of impact he had on the cricketing field. I think yeah,
Oh, yeah, I
you,
thought.
yeah, I thought you were saying something.
I thought you had something more to add, but definitely, I mean, David Warner is an absolute legend. He has served Aussie cricket for such a long period of time, and it's difficult, to kind of fill his shoes. But I'm again fairly certain they have the right replacements and systems in place to, get that sort of a
I mean, for
replacement. Yeah.
T20, you must have seen David Warner's story. He literally passed the baton to Jake Fraser McGurk, and I think Jake Fraser McGurk is a really rare talent, and I won't be surprised if they slot him into the test setup. Of course, not immediately, because the next assignment in terms of test format that we have is a really big India series at home, and that's one thing that where we are hurting as a contingent, because the first defeat back in 2018-19, that was okay, that was kind of acceptable. We were quite low on our arsenal as well in terms of the first choice players. The test setup was quite significantly reshuffled, and that was kind of expected as well, given the fact the Indian team had been performing overseas. But that 2020-21 series down under, I think that's one series where it really hurt us. And yeah, I think that's one. I think that hurt us quite a lot, and you must have seen the way we turned around things quite significantly after that, particularly in the test format, winning literally everything, because that MCG test essentially cost us the WTC final back in 21, right? So that's one. I think that's one area where we were hurt, and we turned it around, took it in a like positive manner, and built on top of it.
Absolutely. And the rest, as they say, is history, right? Because of the way Australia has dominated. I think the World Test Championship discussion will take us on an entirely different tangent and be a, tough pill for a lot of us fans to swallow. But definitely, we will miss David Vaughan and hope to see him in franchise cricket if that's the plan of action for him. But just getting our conversation back to the World Cup, let's talk about the USA versus England match. Here we saw how England just piled on the agony of the US, chasing down that 115 in a matter of what 9.4 overs. So, what did you make of this run chase and a typical win for England, the way they just battered US?
I think the game against West Indies kind of broke US and their confidence along with their momentum, because West Indies literally annihilated US in that game. There was one clinical display of batting, bowling, and fielding. I mean, something that I would really call a complete performance. And given the high wavelength US had been riding ever since the group stage, I think something like this was around the corner. And given the fact that it came against West Indies in such a manner, I think that's something that must have played on their mind, and it was quite evident in the way they batted in that game against England as well. I mean, of course, the English bowled well, but 120 was not something that you actually associate with a team that has qualified for Super 8, and definitely not with a team like US, who outbatted quite a lot of teams throughout the group stage. So I think that's one thing that affected US players and their mindset. And of course, the loss of Monak Patel also did not really help them, because he was really solid at the top of the order. And given the fact that they were without their first choice opener, like I said, this has been a bowlers tournament, and openers play a vital role in the way your team is shaping up. And in order the fact that they lost their not only their captain but their opening batter, who had batted in that slot for around about an year and a half, 2 years. So you get accustomed to a particular situation, and to reshuffle that at the nth moment, I think that's something that really costed US, particularly in the Super 8 stage.
Definitely, and it was a very sad end to what could have been a very nice campaign, and a surprise semi-final finish. But I think they'd still take pride from the way they have performed in the group stages to even make it to the Super Eights, pipping the likes of Pakistan, New Zealand, and other teams as well. And also, just quickly looking at the West Indies versus South Africa match. Now, this was an interesting one. We saw Rain again play spoil sport. Yet, South Africa won by 3 wickets. Keeping that winning streak alive. So, what were your thoughts on this match?
I think David Miller is one choker who is amongst a team of chokers, but who does not really choke. David Miller is that one player in South African team who never bottles an ICC tournament. If even if his team is losing, there would be a significant contribution from David Miller. And that was one game where David Miller looked like he was in tatters. He did not really know how to bat. It seemed like he had forgotten how to bat. And the moment that his wicket fell, I think that was one point where I thought maybe West Indies can capitalize on this one and qualify for the semi-final from there onwards. But the way Marco Jensen then batted, the game was in a dicey situation, but the way he batted at that point, I was not expecting quite a lot of good things from Marco Jensen back then, because of course he had endured quite a huge injury, quite a big collision with Kagiso Rabada in the field in the first innings. So I was not really sure if he would be in his mettle to perform the way he did, but to perform like that under pressure, I think that gives quite a lot of South African fans a lot of hope with the way have they have of course they have endured some close finishes throughout this tournament, but the way they have been able to absorb that pressure and come on top of it, I think that would give quite a lot of confidence to the South African fans and the players themselves. And in the post match dressing room scenes, we definitely saw how much it meant for the South African team to have won that game. So yeah, I think South Africa are in a really good shape. And of course, it's sad to see a team like West Indies miss out on top four, particularly in a home World Cup. That's of course a really big thing. But even looking at the wider picture, the West Indian players are. are a contingent who really play a lot of T20 cricket, a lot of franchisee cricket. So I mean, like you said earlier, West Indies was one team pretty much everybody had in their top four in the semi-finals, and for them to miss the way they did, I mean, it was a bit of shame for the game of cricket. But yeah, I think that's how it happens. Had South Africa lost that game, they would have won 6 out of 7, and then went on to miss the semi-final. So I think, yeah, that's just the game of cricket.
Yeah,
You
it's
can't
all
have it all.
about, yeah. And it's all about margins, honestly, because West Indies, otherwise had a dream tournament, all of their things coming together. You had Darren Sam, you could see that passion and everything. But South Africa just proved to be too good that day. And, the outcome kind of speaks for itself. And let's talk about the India versus Australia encounter, something that has been referenced, throughout our discussion. We saw how India pulled off a clinical win and kind of just ensure their qualification to the Super 8. So it's very much still in their hands. So what were your thoughts on India's performance, and more importantly, what did not work well for Australia? I mean, you've dwelled a lot on the fielding aspect and that not working, but anything else that's coming, which you feel has hindered Australia's progress in this tournament specifically?
I think if I'm to compare Mitch Marsh and Pat Cummins as captains, of course, the 23 World Cup, Pat Cummins had quite a significant amount of experience with captaincy at international level coming into that ICC World Cup. On the contrary, Mitch Marsh did not really captain that much at the international level. I think it's just a few series here and there. So that's definitely one thing where I felt Mitchell Marsh was put under pressure, and definitely he could have performed a little bit better with the bowling changes, of course. Uh, I think even with the bowling, I heard a lot of. I mean, there was a lot of talks about Nathan Ellis missing out, and maybe he could have played in place of the big three. I think the big three did perform well. The bowling department did perform well. It was just that the fielding aspect allowed India from a total of 180, 185 to 205. The margin of those 15-20 runs, and you do not really see somebody like David Warner faltering under pressure under a high ball, right? And that was something that happened quite a lot of times during this tournament. And even in that India game, we dropped quite a lot of chances. There were a few misfields here and there. So I think that's something that drove India's total from 180 to what could have been 180 to something of 205. And once you breach a total like 205 against India, sorry, as India, so to chase that total against a team that has got Jasprit Bumrah in their attack, the 4 overs of Jasprit Bumrah would not have. I was pretty sure those 4 overs would not have been any more than 20 runs, 25 runs at tops. So that was the case at the end as well. And the way the Indian attack bowled, I think Arshdeep has been quite a revelation throughout this tournament. To keep some, I mean, Mohammad Siraj is India's first choice swing bowler, but to be able to keep somebody like Siraj out of the setup altogether, I think that speaks for the way Arshdeep has performed throughout this tournament. I was a little bit skeptical about his IPL performances because he was on and off during the IPL tournament. But then again, come the ICC tournament, Arshdeep bowled really well. And I think it was back a few weeks back where I actually predicted once the India Australia fixture was finalized for 24th of June, I did predict that Arshdeep and Bumrah would be the bowling menace that Australia need to take care of. Uh, it wasn't the spin of Kuldeep. It wasn't the straight arm balls of Akshar Patel. I think it was the bowling from Jasprit Bumrah and particularly Arshdeep that cost Australia that. I mean, we could have performed better.
Absolutely. A lot of things that did not go their way, but just taking some comments here. We have Akshat who says Rohit Sharma's innings against Australia was the best innings of this World Cup. A lot of people put Nicholas Pooran's 98 there, but I think Rohit Sharma's knock was another spectacular one. So, as an Aussie fan, let's not think from an Aussie fan perspective, but just as a fan of the game and as a fan of cricket, what were your thoughts, Anshul, on this knock?
I think Rohit Sharma's innings, strictly speaking, from a great cricket perspective, I think Rohit Sharma's innings came from that hurt he endured on 19th November. You could see that pain in his eyes, that agony that when he skied that ball to Travis Head at short cover. cover point, and I think that was pretty evident in the way he had been batting. That one over against Mitch Stark kind of made him go loose, and he did not really look back after that. And I think it was the innings of Rohit Sharma at the end that proved to be the difference. Of course, we had Travis Head from our end as well, but the fact that the Indian batting lineup, apart from Rohit Sharma, were able to chip in with some 150, 160 strike rate innings. Maybe even if they were not big ones, but they were decent enough cameos given the context of the game. And I think that's one area where Australia really lagged. Like I said, ever since the wicket of Maxwell fell, Tim David, Marcus Stoinis, Matthew Wade, none of them looked the way the Indian lineup looked. If you look at somebody like Surya or Hardik, the way they batted, even Jadeja, who could not really touch the ball throughout this tournament, he went on to hit a six, and that was a surprising element for me. That's how much it meant for the Indian contingent. It was very evident with the way they had been batting that they were hurt from the previous time they lost against us. And I think, yeah, it was pretty evident in the way Rohit Sharma batted as well. And then again, Rohit Sharma has had this history of scoring big runs against us. And it was just one of those days where you just tip your hat off to probably one of the best innings of this T20 World Cup.
Absolutely. I mean, bringing that 15 watts, just 19 balls goes to show, right? He was in that attacking blitzkrieg mode, and it was amazing to, just see him go all guns blazing. And we also have Hari Prasad with a question here. He's asking your thoughts on Hazelwood's spell in that particular game.
I think Hazelwood's spell was better than Arshdeep and Bumrah. It might be a controversial opinion, but it was actually better than Arshdeep or Bumrah, merely because of the fact that he kept the runs tight. You saw Pat come. You from one end you are seeing Pat Cummins go for 48 of 4 overs. On the contrary, Mitch Stark is going for 55, 60 runs of 4 overs. You are somebody who is going for 20 runs, and you are quite a good mates with them. You've played almost your entire career with them across formats, and it, from a speaking from a bowler's point of view, whenever your bowling partner is going for runs, it kind of plays on your mind as well as to, okay, I need to break through. I need to do something here. But I think the way Hazelwood kept nagging with that length of his, that's one area where I felt that Hazelwood was the standout bowler, and probably the only bowler who was able to absorb that pressure. I mean, of course, it was very difficult for Surya to hit, or any Indian batter to hit against him. It looked like Rohit Sharma, if Rohit Sharma was batting on a different wicket entirely, it looked like Hazelwood was bowling on a different strip altogether.
Right. And, I think that was still a memorable spell for Hazelwood, although the match didn't end up in Australia's favor, something, that will be remembered by all of us. And yeah, let's talk about the blockbuster match that has literally, like caught the attention of every single person on social media. You see everyone having opinions, which is the Afghanistan versus Bangladesh match. I think this match saw everything happen, right? Rain just adding to the drama. So, was this your favorite Super 8s match? Because, there's just so many things that happen. And I think even Nikhil's comment here is really good, which says biceps and hamstrings, the Gulbadi knife story, selling at your nearest bookstore. So, yeah, I mean, this match was that knockout punch to Australia because Afghanistan just pulled a victory out of nowhere, right?
I think that game, a game has got quite a lot riding on in the context of tournament when the two teams who are playing are less excited to play that game, and the most excited team who is actually who is actually following and eyeing every ball of that game is sitting in an entirely different country. Australia were sitting in Gros Islet, St. Lucia. This game was in, I think it was in St. Vincent and Grenadines. They are literally sitting in different country altogether, a different island, and yet Australia were keeping a close eye on the game. That goes on to say how much was riding on this particular game. Of course, like Nikhil said, the Gulbuddin Naib story, I think that's one story where I mean, I honestly had a huge laugh when he held his hamstring, because I myself have endured a hamstring tear the previous year while fielding. And Gulbuddin Naib holds his hamstring, and literally 5-10 minutes later, he makes a 400-meter sprint. I think Ian Smith was one who said this on air, or I think on Twitter. I don't know where, that he wants to take a look at Gulbuddin Naib's doctor, or the Afghanistan team's doctor, because he is having a dodgy knee for quite a while now, and the way Gulbuddin Naib was treated, so that he could literally sprint 400 meters, having held his hamstring, having strained it. I think that speaks for itself. And I mean, yeah, of course, these kind of things, I mean, that eventually did not have any effect at the final result, but I think, yeah, it was really funny to look at, definitely.
And as Akshat goes on to say, Gulbadin should be given an Oscar, for slowing down the game against Bangladesh. But Ankit, do you really think, it was well within the whole rules? Because we had Jonathan Trott right from the boundary, indicate to, just kind of slow down the game. We saw a lot of things just happening there. So within the sportsmanship, the whole cricket is a gentleman's game, and, you have the sportsmanship that you kind of need to adhere to. Did you think that this act kind of fell in that bracket, or maybe, it's just not the way it was supposed to be?
I think you can compare it with those moments towards the fag end of a day's play in Test cricket, where the batters are constantly asking for change of gloves, just so that just so that they face lesser balls in the dusk. So I think, yeah, that's one part and parcel of the game. And I mean, I'm not a pommy, so I won't go deep into the spirit of cricket thing and everything associated with that, because I think, yeah, that's pretty much left better if the pommies handle it with the English fans, and they whine all about it. But I think, yeah, it was really hilarious to see. I'll definitely say that.
And we have Nikhil asking us a question of, your thoughts on Lytton Das not taking strike, at the end. Like, majorly we saw him not being there. So do you think that was something that could have costed Bangladesh the game?
I think this is something that comes with game awareness. When you are playing against top teams in crunch situations and crunch matches, this is something that comes along with that. Now, it sort of looked like at the fall of seventh wicket, Bangladesh kind of went into a shell. At 81 for 7, it seemed like they started going into a shell, even though they had their skipper batting at what, 50, 55, 60 or something around about. He was 55 red at that point. And I think this is something that comes with game awareness. You are a set better, you have got a bowler at the other end who is not that good at hogging strike and something like that. So I think this is something where this is one point where, as a senior player, as a batter yourself, you should be taking the majority of strike and try to win that game, because at that point the equation was not that much. It was literally less than run a ball, somewhere around about 5.5 something. So I think that's something that comes with experience, of course. And it looked like Bangladesh had surrendered after the fall of that seventh wicket, and it was pretty evident in the way they uh, approached the game after that as well. And of course, there were a couple of rain breaks as well ever since that seventh wicket fell. And as a player, it's very frustrating for you, for anybody, to be going on and off the field. And in such situations, you often miss out the context of the game, and the game situation is something that goes away from you. And that's one area where Afghanistan capitalized. They were, despite of the rain breaks and delays, Afghanistan made sure that all the 11 players were on the same page. And they from there onwards, they did not really look back, and ended the Bangladesh innings quite early.
Definitely. And for what it's worth, I think we got to see a brilliant match, absolute blockbuster scenes, happening right from the ground. But, Australia being knocked out was, probably the one unfortunate consequence, that came from this match. And you could see all over social media, people were upset about it. You could see Fox Cricket, come out with the most wacky headlines and everything that was happening. And people, being like, they're just being bad sports. But let's see, Australia will, of course, make a comeback. I don't even have to say let's see, because the very next ICC World Cup or any, ICC tournament, we know what Australia is going to do. So write them off on your own peril. But Anshul, let's also quickly preview the semi-final matches we have. We have two very exciting encounters all set to start tomorrow. We have India, squaring off against England. Both the teams looking in pristine form, perhaps stemming from how their players have been stepping up and delivering on different occasions. So, how much are you looking forward to this match, and any key matchups and battles in particular?
I think it's a tough match for me to pick sides, India and England. So I would refrain from picking any one side. But as far as the matchups are concerned, I think, yeah, the way Jasprit Bumrah takes care of Phil Salt, I think that's one matchup that will ensure how the game is progressing, because we all are aware of the way England batted in that 2022 semi-final against against India. Sorry, where they chased 170, 180 without loss of any wicket. And even in that game, Josh Butler was the one who hogged the strike earlier, who struck somewhere around about 150, 160, and Alex Hales followed him later. So that's something that has been happening. I mean, the shoe is on the other side this time around. Phil Salt is somebody who gives England the momentum, and Josh Butler is somebody who rides that momentum, and that's how they have been playing that's how they have been navigating much of their innings throughout this World Cup. We all saw that again West Indies. It was also evident against the USA as well. Of course, the quality of attacks is different, but what I'm trying to say is the way they are approaching their innings is very similar to the template they have set up under on Morgan. And I think the matchup between Jasprit Bumrah and Phil Salt, that would be something that will determine the outcome of this game.
Right, and we'll grab our popcorn, get ready, to see this encounter because it's happening at a very convenient Indian Standard Time of 8 p.m. But as Akshat says, semi-final one is of course South Africa versus Afghanistan. That's going to be the match to watch out for early morning tomorrow. So all of us are going to get our alarms ready after this live show, of course, because imagine, Anshul, you have the potential of, I mean, of course, there's going to be a winner from this match, but South Africa or Afghanistan making it to the finals of the T20 World Cup was not on anyone's bingo card, right? So, again, remarkable journeys for both of these teams. And anything you're looking forward to in this encounter?
I think South Africa is one team that I did pick to be in the top four, merely because of the versatility they possess in their lineup. Most of the teams having come from the IPL, they picked a lot of heavy hitters throughout their lineup from 1 to 7. However, South Africa is that one team that has got more than one anchors and more than four power hitters as well. If you look at somebody like Markram, he can also strike at 180, 190, but at the same time, given the situation, he can strike at 120, 130 as well. Similar is the case with David Miller. And if you look at somebody like Quinton de Kock, he can do also the same thing. So in terms of versatility, I think South Africa is the one team that have got all facets covered in terms of their uh, entire 15, if not only the 11. Because even if you look at the spin contingent, Keshav Maharaj is doing an absolutely phenomenal job. But Tabraiz Samsi at the same end, you pick him from the bench, he comes, he performs, and then he leaves. That has been the template for Tabraiz Samsi for quite a while now. He has been their second choice spinner, of course, but given the way he has been able to navigate between running drinks and bowling onto the field, I think that's something that South Africa should be really they should feel really confident about. And of course, in their just previous game against West Indies, the you do not really see Kagiso Rabada being not bowled up until the 17th over of the innings. I think it was the 17th and 19th over were the two overs that Kagiso Rabada bowled, and you don't really see your opening bowler, your strike bowler, being out bowled by your part timers or your second choice bowlers. I think that speaks for the way the South African bowling attack has been coming through, and I think Afghanistan's strength has always been their bowling. Ever since they have come onto the cricketing folklore, it's been all about their bowling, and their batting has been something that has started to fire right about now, last few months. So I think it's going to be a battle between South Africa's batting, how they are able to navigate through the Afghanistan challenge, and how well Afghanistan can capitalize. Afghanistan bowlers can capitalize on the nervous situations and all the nerves of South African players, because they have been in these kind of situations before, and of course it plays on your mind. If it happens once, it's a different thing altogether. But if it has been happening for decades, it kind of comes to your mind that okay, we are the first team, we are yet again in a similar situation from where where our previous ancestors or previous players literally bottled these games. So it does play onto your mind, but I think the mental toughness between, and at the same time, Afghanistan bowlers are aware of the fact that their batters are not somebody who can go on to score 200 for a 150 160 game. Their batters are really well potent to put up a show. But if South Africa go on to score 200, then I think it's a upper hand for South Africa, because their bowling lineup is really good. Like I said, if you are able to keep Kagiso Rabada out of attack for 17 overs in a T20 game, then it speaks volume for the depth you have, right? So it's going to be a battle between South Africa's batting and Afghanistan's bowling. How well the two departments are able to absorb pressure and capitalize on the situation, capitalize on the chances that are being created. I think that's one. I think that's one matchup where I think it would determine the outcome of this semi-final. Particularly Fazal Haq Faruqi. I think Fazal Haq Faruqi. I think
Yes, yes.
that's how it is pronounced, right? His matchup against Quentin de Kock. That's
Ooh.
one. That's one matchup that I'm looking forward to in this game. And in the middle of overs, of course, Henrik Klassen against Rashid Khan. We have seen how well he has batted against Rashid Khan in the IPL in the previous encounters they have had. But World Cup semi-final is a different gravy altogether. And South Africa have had a history of ending on the wrong foot in such situations, on the wrong side. So I think, yeah, that's one matchup in the middle overs that I would really look forward to.
Yeah, I mean, South Africa would definitely be hoping to not end on the wrong side of history, not carry that emotional baggage that their predecessors have clearly carried. And even just looking at Afghanistan, they are the first team, I think, after like Kenya, who are making it to the semi-finals. Because you usually see the suspects of Australia, England, New Zealand, South Africa make it to the semi-finals. But Afghanistan has had this magical journey so far. And, here's hoping they can kind of go all the way. And let's take a few comments. Akshat says here, who would be your finalists? Mine would be India versus Afghanistan. Okay,
Oh,
interesting.
that's a tough one. I can't pick between India and England. That's a really tough one for me. I can't
Yeah.
really pick between the two teams, because as an Aussie fan, if there are two teams that I find myself the most competitive against, it's got to be England and Australia. Of
And
course, there
India.
has been a lot of talks. So yeah, England and India. Sorry. Of course, there have been a lot of talks over the years that the Ashes have fallen in terms of the rivalry and the high octane
No.
encounters that are
Hmm.
there. But I think that was well answered in the 2023 Ashes. So I'm not going to delve into that conversation right now. So yeah, it's going to be quite a tough thing for me to pick between England and India. But having said that, I would really love for South Africa to be in the semi-final, be in the final, merely because of the way they deserve it. They absolutely deserve it, because if there has been one team that has been challenged throughout this tournament and have always managed to come on top through pressure situations, I think it has been South Africa. Even India have not faced any pressure situations or any critical moments throughout the tournament, throughout their campaign. So from that point of view, I think South Africa definitely deserve. But then again, Afghanistan's rise is a meteoric. I won't say it a meteoric rise, but yeah, it's exponential for sure. So, but given the skill set, given the depth the two teams have, I think on paper South Africa look in a better position to qualify for the final.
And yeah, Amshul won't make a pick between India and England. He would be happy to see either team make it through, or neither team, but that can't happen because,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. I would have been happy to see neither team, but then again, it's not a choice, right?
yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean, unless,
ha-
rain plays spoil sport. Or yeah, but we
Yeah,
still
I mean,
would have one team progress.
yeah, definitely. Even if rain plays a spoil sport, there is no reserve day for this game. So definitely, India are gonna go through to the final, because of course, because of the fact that they finished higher in the group stage and the Super 8 stage as well. So yeah, I think that's completely out of my control. In an ideal situation, I would have liked to see neither of the teams, but yeah, it is what it is.
And one last comment before we wrap up. Hari Prasad goes on to say Rashid and Noor both would be difficult to tackle. Excited to see how Klaasen takes them on. I think, he's referencing how the IPL gave us a different picture. Now this World Cup has entirely different
Mhm.
conditions. So are you looking forward to this as well,
Yeah,
Anshul?
like I said, in the middle overs, there's going to be a huge matchup between the Afghan spinners and
Yeah.
Henrik Klaasen, because Henrik Klaasen has been somebody who is designated to navigate those spin overs, and Afghanistan have got quite a good quality of spinners in their attack, in their arsenal, and particularly with Rashid Khan, I think you can say he is the Jasprit Bumrah equivalent of Afghanistan. He's not going to give you many opportunities. He's not going to give you many loose balls. And he has played against the biggest of names in BBL, in other franchisee cricket, as in the IPL as well. So he's got experience behind his back. That's one thing that he would definitely look to capitalize. Having said that, I think Henrik Larsson is somebody who strikes spin better than anybody in the game right now. So that I think more than Noor Ahmed, I think Rashid Khan is somebody who should trouble Henrik Klaasen a little bit, merely because of the way he bowls that googly, having bowled leg breaks for 4 or 5 deliveries. So that particular setup is something that I think Henrik Klaasen would find it a little bit challenging. But like I said, I expect South Africa to come on top of things if they're able to manage a good start.
Right. And yeah, Anshul, that pretty much does conclude our discussion. Thank you so much, for taking time off your schedule to join me today and share your lovely insights on the Super Eights and, just preview the semi-finals, because every fan, irrespective of which team they support, is excited for tomorrow. It's going to give us, our finalists for this World Cup. And to all the viewers also who joined us in, thank you so much for your questions and remarks. It really helped our discussion, and we will be doing live shows like this very frequently. So, make sure to subscribe to Never in the Back Foot on Instagram, on X, and on YouTube as well. We have an audio podcast on Spotify. That's where it all started. And we've done a lot of episodes with Anshul there as well. So, please do check them out. Quick plug in there. And yeah, guys, that's all from us. Let's hope for a good day of cricket tomorrow. Rest well, take care, and bye for now.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining. Cheers.